The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where people with limited knowledge or competence in a specific domain greatly overestimate their own abilities. Conversely, it also describes how high performers tend to underestimate their relative excellence, assuming that what is easy for them must be easy for everyone else. It was first detailed in a 1999 study by David Dunning and Justin Kruger, inspired by the bizarre case of a bank robber who covered his face in lemon juice, believing it would make him invisible to security cameras because lemon juice works as invisible ink. And
do you think he got away?
With that, welcome to House Einstein Podcast 101. Hamish, we are into the triple digits, our second triple digit podcast. Yeah. And if you are new to the pod, welcome. We are glad you are here. And we've got a lot to talk about in this podcast. I'm your host, Osman, with the House Einstein brokerage. And with me is Hamish. Crap.
Typically introduced as the right-hand man, so
I don't know
it's
how
difficult. Yeah.
I mean, with me is Hamish. I don't know if I needed to introduce you as right-hand person. I mean, people that have heard this podcast 100 times don't really need the intro of who we are. Right. But if this is your first time in this pod, listening or watching, welcome to the podcast. Our mission is to entertain with regard to real estate matters, and the podcast is sponsored by the House Einstein brokerage. I want to make a clear distinction here. The brokerage's mission is to help you make a smarter real estate decision, but for purposes of this podcast, if you are not a client, this is simply entertainment. So please don't make any major real estate or other decisions based on anything you hear in this pod. We would strongly advise you not to do that. But if you are a client of the brokerage or would like to become one, pick up the phone and call us. You can visit us at houseeinstein.com. You can see the roster of agents in the company. We serve everything from South Denver suburbs all the way up to parts of Fort Collins. Actually, now we've got a listing in the middle of Fort Collins. Yeah. And we also cover the mountain towns, particularly the resort markets that are closer to the Front Range. I don't really venture into Vail or Aspen that often, although if you really love what we do, we could talk about how that might work with a partnership with an agent there. But anyway, that's the backstory of what this podcast is, and we are glad you're here. Let's keep talking about this little Dunning-Kruger effect a little bit, and why we're talking about it. I also want to mention that we're going to go through our entire our table of contents in just a minute. So hold on. Okay, there's a double curse of incompetence with the Dunning-Kruger effect. And here are the two curses. The first one is a lack of skills leads you to make mistakes and reach poor conclusions. And then the second curse is that same lack of skills prevents you from having the meta-knowledge required to recognize that your conclusions are poor. So essentially, you need to be competent in a subject in order to accurately judge how incompetent you are. Without that baseline, you are unskilled and unaware of it. And while this effect is famous, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. But one thing is that it's not about general intelligence. The Dunning-Kruger effect refers to specific domains of intelligence. And so, for example, a brilliant surgeon might be a victim of the Dunning-Kruger effect when they try to fix their own plumbing. And boy, we've got, I mean, so the core topic of this podcast is our closing table topic, and for today, that is the spectrum of competency. And boy, we have some stories to share about both ends of the spectrum of competency. We'll also be giving you some tales from the trenches. We've got a deal that closed actually a while ago, but we can finally tell the story of. It's an example of the seller doing everything right, and the deal worked out fine, but boy, when we went live, a lot of unexpected things happened, and so that was a good way to frame it. Yeah, that's how to expect the unexpected, I think, is the take-home lesson from that one. We'll be telling you that tale from the trench. In our market conditions segment, we're going to talk about the National Association of Realtors predictions for next year and whether they're in their own Dunning-Kruger rabbit hole or not. We've got sales of the week. I think we have 5 properties to talk about. Yes, we do. Everything from a $2.6 $1 million listing just below Chautauqua to a really attractive single-family house up in Shanahan Ridge, where there's not a lot of there's not a lot of single-family houses up there. We're going to talk about that sale. If you're looking for our conversation or our analysis of new listings, you will only find that in our newsletter. And I just put out the most recent one, and I covered some very interesting properties. And I'm always trying to do that respectfully, but sometimes it's just sort of mind-blowingly...
You gotta be yourself sometimes and say what's on your mind.
I mean, just there's some astounding marketing going on around some high-end listings right now. So if you are not a subscriber to the newsletter, please subscribe. I cannot share that information publicly because of the rules from the Real Estate Commission regarding... it's actually an MLS rule. You're not allowed to talk about active listings, and at least in a way that could potentially be interpreted as disparaging them and could potentially damage the marketing of those homes. And so at the same time, we have to be honest about what we see when our clients ask us for an opinion about what do you think of this listing. And so the newsletter is for prospective clients that want to hear our thoughts about active listings, and you have to sign up. But once you sign up, that barrier, you're in our client list, and we can send you that, and you don't have to go any further. If you decide to keep working with the agent you're working with, that's totally fine. It's for prospective clients. If you want to get a taste of the House Einstein magic of
the secret sauce, I think is their most recent.
The secret sauce is the name of that latest newsletter. So we have not actually identified a shameless self-promotion for this pod, Hamish. So let that simmer for a second. I'll let maybe you lead that one, since we didn't write one in for this particular episode. And then we're going to talk about the news. There's some stuff that's happened recently, including Hanukkah on Pearl Street, the celebration of Hanukkah on Pearl, and the Darkhorse, and it's now slightly delayed death. It's mostly dead. We're going to talk about that. I was just there last night, so that impressions are very fresh. And Google is now testing listings on their search results. So Zillow saw their stock price plunge 8% on that news yesterday.
Really? Yeesh.
Yeah. Ouch. I mean, you could do the math on what a one-day instance. Of course, the whole market was down yesterday, so it's not like that news alone cost Zillow 8%.
But we'll dive in. Yeah.
We'll dive in. Yeah. And Zillow also has a popular metro study for 2025 that they just released. And so that's in the news. And then, as always, when we wrap up the pod, we do that with carve-outs. And carve-outs are anything that happens to be top of mind for Hamish and I to talk about. And that's our table of contents. So if you're ready for this episode of the House Einstein podcast, let's get on with it.
Shall we jump right in? Roll the sponsor spot.
This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more.
Sponsor spot is rolled.
I haven't heard the sponsor spot in a long time, Hamish. So
it might be time for a rework.
It might be time for some refreshing of the sponsor spot. But I'm always I never listen to the podcast after we record it. So
I'm like, since I put it in every episode, I'm trying to think if I can. I'm not verbatim, but I know it starts like, this episode is sponsored by the House Einstein brokerage, whether you're buying or selling in Boulder, Colorado, the Front Range, or beyond, something like that. But
is it your voice or my voice?
It's you. Yeah,
it's me. Okay.
Yeah,
great. I should listen to it.
Yeah, we'll rework it for the new year.
There's just something a little pretentious about just the idea of watching your own.
I mean, it's a 2-hour podcast. Like, there's,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if we were movie. If we were Hollywood actors, you watch your own film maybe once, but after that, would you ever watch your own film again?
I don't know. It'd be difficult to remove yourself from it, right? and enjoy it for the film versus seeing yourself and watching, especially acting. I mean, I think I'd critique myself the whole time.
And that might be useful if you're looking to get better, right? Which you would hope everybody that is a master of their craft is always looking to get better.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd enjoy like Inglourious Basterds the same way as, you know, if I was Brad Pitt watching it or something. But maybe, you know, you're like, oh, I loved filming this part. I made sure we did 12 takes and everybody hated me. Or you've got the blooper knowledge.
I mean, I feel like Matthew McConaughey doesn't go back and watch Dazed and Confused just to see him do that one line that he became famous for, right?
Yeah.
That line that is still in our popular culture today. But at the same time, maybe every decade or so he does. Although he now has children that are like the same age as the actors are supposed to be in that film, and so that's got to be a little bit embarrassing to say that line, and like it's a cringeworthy line, and you've got like high school age kids.
Anyhow, it is close to the new year, and as per requirement in the state of Colorado, us real estate agents have to take continuing ed. There's a certain amount of hours we need to fulfill per year to maintain good standing. And Osman, you've just finished yours. I finished mine probably 3 weeks ago. We're both a little late.
Well, no, we're not late.
To how we usually like to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to not rush your continuing ed. Oh boy, I'm getting...
So we had a listing. Yeah.
We're recording this...
fill them in.
Let me just mention that we are recording this on the same day that Excel is planning a power outage. So this is a power safety shutoff, or it's preemptive safety shutoff. My house has got generator, and I also put the Wi-Fi on uninterrupted power supply. So in theory, we should have no problems. But it's possible, Hamish, if your neighborhood gets affected, that we may have to pause the pod. We will see how that plays out, but I just felt the whole house shake. That's why I paused, because literally my desk just vibrated. And
I think I saw the webcam move. Like, I don't know, maybe it was auto framing or something, but yeah.
There was a little bit of vibration. I'm like, what is that? And I looked out the window, and sure enough, there's suddenly a lot of wind. It was calm half an hour ago. So it's coming. And of course, you know, with Trump wanting to dismantle NCAR on the same day this is happening, it just feels like... Okay. You haven't seen the news? Oh, Hamish. No. Yes.
I'm taking the ostrich approach, as detrimental as that will be. But
I got a text message from one of our friends and clients who does climate change research with that news last night, and I just looked at it with just, I don't know, sadness. And it's almost like I can't be shocked anymore at Trump and his behavior. But anyway, that just happened, this wind, and I don't want to go on a Trump sidetrack. But although the spectrum of competency, right, maybe the Dunning-Kruger effect may be relevant when we're talking about this.
Good tie-in.
But with any regard, we just finished our continuing ed. Normally, I don't wait to the last minute. And we look for courses that might actually have value, but to be quite frank, most of the time they don't. And most of the time, I could probably take the quiz without looking at any of the content and still pass. And passing is only 70% on these tests. And then they let you take it twice before they force you to repeat the content again. So there's really no penalty for failing the test. Like, you don't get kicked out for failing the test on your continuing ed. You just have to take the test again. But the continuing ed is so... I mean, I posted a slide I go to my Twitter, and you'll see I have like 5 followers. So, you know, go to my Twitter, and you'll see like a real slide from the continuing ed on ethics and technology. And it literally has a description of what a cell phone is as a slide and what constitutes this mobile device. And I'm just astounded at how poor quality the continuing ed is. And it brought back this memory of first getting involved in real estate with a brokerage on Nantucket. And so I am a man from Nantucket because I lived there for several years. And during that time, for most of that time, I worked at a real estate brokerage. And they hired me to be a financial analyst to help develop a private club called the Westmore Club, which you can look up online. It still exists. And I built the financial model and helped my boss build a pitch book And we raised capital from now defunct Lehman Brothers. And then I, like you, Hamish, very much jack of all trades, I suddenly became the QuickBooks guy and set up the chart of accounts on QuickBooks.
Knowing you, that's so on brand.
Interviewed and hired the bookkeeper, right? And I had no experience in hiring bookkeepers, but I took it seriously and came up with great questions. And the bookkeeper I hired stayed with the company for a very long time, and she may still be with the company or one of its branches, and then handled requisitions for the club, which is the construction costs. As costs come in, a requisition is put together to get that money from our investor, Lehman. They need to know where the money's going, so you have to like itemize the receipts and submit that requisition and then get all those contractors paid. And so I got involved in all of that, and also creating some accounting controls for when we were signing up new members. We would get the check. I'd be getting the check and deposit it and make sure that we were properly accounting for it in QuickBooks. All of that I set up, which the one thing I didn't do, of course, was ask for a membership. That would have been smart as part of my comp.
I would have assumed would have been a given.
My name is not on the wall anywhere, but I was there behind the scenes. But the reason I'm bringing up all of that is that was what I was primarily hired for, and then also to help the agents with their marketing and with their opinions of value or comparative market analyses for prospective clients that they're looking to represent, selling or buying, help them properly value the homes. And in asking me to help these agents, that's when I realized that there's a huge spectrum of competency. And most of the agents in the office, not all of them, but most of them were really just had great personalities and knew a lot of people, had been members of the community for a significant period of time, were really well connected, and real estate was sort of a second career for them. In many cases, not all of them. And many of them had not worked outside of real estate prior, so their professional skill set, and this is 2002. This is 2001 or 2002. 2002, I think. And their professional skill set was really more social and personable than analytical.
Like analytical and qualitative.
And I was astounded. I distinctly remember one older realtor, and I really loved him as a human, like a really lovely guy, although kind of a curmudgeon, and a little bit like at times like sexist. Given his age and previous profession, it wasn't exactly a surprise, this behavior, and he got away with it because he was kind of grandpa-y, but he would say things that would get you fired instantly in a modern workplace to some of the women in the office.
Like this mountain agent we know locally.
Yes, like a certain agent we know locally that says things that are like, oh my God, report to HR right now with what you just said. But what I remember is that some of them really struggled with basic things like using email and using a PC. Like I was constantly helping them with the most basic PC things, personal computer things, right? Not everyone had a cell phone at that time.
And that's like 2000, like .com era, it's called, right?
No, this is post.com. The .com bubble burst in March of 2000. This is after the bubble burst. And so I helped the agents, and that's when I realized that I have a professional skill set that could really benefit this industry, and that's how I ended up in real estate. Long story short, I did one deal on Nantucket before we moved out here. I got licensed, and I realized getting licensed made a lot of sense because these guys were working half the time I was working, and working often meant like socializing, drinking, and playing golf with potential clients. And I'm like, this is way more fun than putting in 50 to 60 hours a week and staring at a computer and babysitting a lot of agents that aren't able to do a opinion of value without my analytical support. Or really, that felt like, at the time, a little bit of arrogance. I felt like I could do it better, and I got licensed. And that's when I realized the value of social skills versus just analytical skills. People do business with those they like and they trust. And it took a while to figure all of that out. And there's a much longer story with it that maybe I'll tell you someday, Hamish. But that spectrum of competency was first apparent when I first started working on Nantucket. And I was shocked at both how low it could be and also in some cases how high it was. But this is the only industry that I've ever worked in that has this broad spectrum where people can very easily get licensed and have no or very little professional skills prior to getting licensed and start doing business on the basis of who they know and a brand jacket, right? They put on the brand jacket of Compass or Remax or Coldwell Banker, and even though they have they pass the real estate exam, they don't really know anything. And they know suddenly
exactly what they need to know and nothing more. Like, you know.
And they could be representing a $1 million a buyer or seller on $1 million transaction and have we've seen it and have no idea what they're doing. And we've taken advantage of our counterparts when they didn't know what they were doing. And I can't quite tell that story, the most recent one yet, but I will tell another one.
Oh, I just remembered another one too. So you do that. I'm going to write it down.
Well, I'll share this one, and it was maybe my third year in the business, and somebody found me from the real estate blog I used to write, and it turned out she was a real estate analyst working primarily in Mexico but living here. Like the investment firm was investing heavily in Mexico, and she did a lot of analytical stuff for this investment company, and she was buying she wanted to buy a condo, and we found her one, and it was right downtown across from, there's a park on Pearl. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but this is
not the bench show.
No, this is 6th and Pearl. So on the west, it's West Pearl. I could look it up on a map. Maybe I should, so I actually sound like I know what I'm talking about. Hang on a second, because this is so
we know it so well. We don't even care for the names. You know,
I just it's such a it's
Eden
like
B.
It's an obscure park, like Hiram something. Hang on a second. What's the park's name? It's called Hiram. There it is, Hiram Fullen Park. And if you look at that corner at 5th and Pearl, there's 2 apartment buildings, and the very southwest top floor unit had come up for sale, and that unit had protected views across the park of the Flatirons. Like, at the time, I called it $1 million views. Today, it's multi-million-dollar views. Mm-hmm. And what happened in that deal was super interesting because the seller had chosen to list it without representation. They were a FSBO. And I think they had used one of these discount listing services that used to exist before the Real Estate Commission said, oh, no, we don't let these people back on the MLS. So they were representing themselves. I submitted the offer, and we offered fairly low, expecting a counter. And the offer had a midnight acceptance deadline. And at 11:50 p.m., they signed it and sent it back. And it was astounding. It was only 2 or 3 times this has happened where they didn't counter. It's like negotiation 101. They told me they just weren't going to accept it on the phone. Like, I talked to them directly, and I said, well, this is the best we could do, so let me know, because that's my position until they send a counter, and then my position is going to change when the buyer tells me it's going to change, which of course, right? We're negotiating. And they signed it. And it turned out they had lost their house, I believe, in the 4 Mile fire, and they needed the money for the rebuild, which makes me feel a little bad, but that's not my job, is to feel sympathetic to the seller and compromise my buyer. My job was to get the best possible deal for the buyer, and I did. And it's still one of the best deals. Like an insane one. Yeah. On a long-term investment. I wish I had bought it. Like, that is such a great spot.
Yeah.
And I believe she still owns it. Shout out to my past client and friend, Kelly. I'm pretty sure she still owns it. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up is because a rookie agent and a FSBO are likely to not have basic negotiation experience and skills unless they brought it with them from a previous industry.
Domain, yeah.
Yeah, a previous, and they don't know what they don't know. So and it can sometimes result in fantastic deals for clients, but it just causes.
The inverse is if you're being represented by somebody who's super incompetent, then you're putting yourself in harm's way indirectly as a client, right? If you select an agent who's very green and relatively incompetent, back to the CE thing, continuing ed. Like, if you have an agent that is learning it didn't know what's on the slideshow that you posted to your Twitter, it's pretty likely that you're gonna be leaving money on the table or miss something in the negotiation.
Well, what's a cell phone should not be a continuing ed slide, and that's sort of smart. Yeah, what's a smartphone? What's a smartphone? Thank you, Hamish, for the clarity. Yeah. What's a smartphone should not be a slide in continuing ed at this phase of professional development, and the fact it is tells you a lot about continuing ed and the spectrum of competency you may find in this industry. So we've had so many podcasts where we talk about how to interview agents and the types of questions you should be asking, in addition to making sure this is somebody that you like and that's somebody that you trust, and making sure that they're available. But you should also take the Dunning-Kruger effect into mind, that they may not know of their own incompetence because they are incompetent in this particular domain. It doesn't mean that they're bad people, right? Like, I'm totally incompetent when it comes to suturing, and I bought a suture training kit because I want to know how to. I did. I bought a whole bunch of sutures after we had somebody slice their hand. No, before, actually. I bought a bunch of sutures because this is just basic survival first aid stuff if you're going to be in the wilderness and doing 14ers by yourself. And so, like, the stuff I do, I want to make sure that I have some basic skills. So it came with like a little fake skin mat, like it's
the silicone,
rubbery, and I could practice my sutures. And that year we had somebody slice their hand open while we were at Burning Man during Build Week. The emergency room's not open, and we have an ER doc that's part of a retired ER doc that's part of our camp, and he used my sutures to sew up our.
It's gotta feel good.
Yeah, it felt great. Yeah. But I'm incompetent. Like, I could probably have done it with really badly, and he has done it 1,000 times. Like, this is something he can do in his sleep. Yeah. Like that. So I know enough by virtue of having tried that I'm incompetent. But right. if there are people that will watch a few YouTube videos and think they know what they're doing, and they don't, just because they're not experienced in practice, and that's why they call it a real estate practice, not just a real estate perfect. Mastery takes like practice, yeah. Right?
Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. Jump in.
I mean, it's regardless of the subject, everybody knows somebody who's like, well, I did my research on this, and you're pretty aware that the research is just a couple of Google searches and maybe a few YouTube videos, and that's I mean, sure, they did some research, but is that really enough to grasp the whole concept? Right, like same as
I hear you completely, and I'm also having these flashes of experience with medical professionals where they literally turn to Google to type in what I just told, like, in front of us. They're not even going to a different room. Yeah. And that was more than a decade ago. That was like 13 years ago. I had a doctor do that, and most recently I had a doctor who is my new primary care doctor. Sorry if this offends this person, I'm not going to mention their name, but I was just astounded at their lack of attention to detail because they thought I was 20 years younger than I really am because of a typo on the chart. They misread the chart, or there was a typo on the chart, and he was asking me why I was concerned about the male health issues that typically start to occur in your 50s. And I was, I showed him that we were talking about prostate exams and prostate like the prostate-specific antigen that now is a blood test. They don't do prostate exams anymore, which is really interesting. I did not know that.
Awesome.
But the part of the incompetence was that he missed something as obvious as I'm not 20 years. Like, there's no way you could confuse me with somebody
who's 30-year-old.
Who's 30. That's not going to happen. I love it, but it's not going to happen. So because you have the medical degree or you have the credential doesn't also mean that you're really competent. It means you might miss some really big things.
Mm-hmm. And we've, for the longest time, I think it's been Dunning-Kruger all along, but I've been trying to come up with the phrase or the name of it, and it's called like the expert's dilemma or like conundrum or something, and it's the opposite end of the Dunning-Kruger, where you are so competent that everything seems easy to you in the subject, and you get really frustrated when somebody's trying to learn because it's just so blatantly obvious, right? And that one's a real one too.
Well, I think a good sign of intelligence is even when you know the answers, you are asking the questions as if you don't. But the micro expressions often give it away. So you got to watch for those micro expressions. But one thing I do want to talk about is how technology is changing and creating both liability and huge return for agents that know what they're doing with this technology. And recently there's a listing, we have talked about it now more than once, where there was so much AI generated imagery, but it was actually pretty good imagery. But when we walked in the door, there was a massive disconnect between the imagery and marketing and the actual experience of the listing.
Yeah.
And so while the listing is getting people in the door, the actual customer journey is profoundly negative. And that by itself is, if you're going to do that,
and
you should at least.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's non-productive, and it also it damages relationships. It's sort of like you got imagery of a brand new shiny car, and then you go to the car lot, and it turns out to be dented and rusty, and have all these issues that were obvious on visible, but they were hidden by AI.
Yeah.
Right? AI photography changed what this thing looked like, and now you have wasted a lot. It's disrespectful to those. So there's this balance between marketing it and disrespecting people with dishonesty over the actual condition of what you're selling. So you got to be a little careful with that. But what I really want to talk about is marketing for effectiveness in selling a listing and marketing for getting new sellers.
Yeah.
And this is a type of dishonesty that I found really frustrating, but I get why brokerages do it. And the old example that I used to use is newspaper advertising. So at that brokerage on Nantucket, we spent a lot of money on newspaper advertising of listings. And it supported a local newspaper, which I still exists, and I'm glad to see they're still there. And agents today will still do this. They will pay for newspaper advertising. And mostly what that does is, in the years I was with that brokerage, nobody ever walked in having seen the listing in the local newspaper.
They've got a little cut out of it.
They never called us from the Wall Street Journal, and they never called us from these really glossy high-end brochures that, like, they were kind of like a catalog that we would put together and supposedly was being sent to high-end buyers around the country. I think it was just tossed in the recycle bin everywhere. We never had anybody pick up the phone and say, I saw this listing in the Wall Street Journal and I really want to go look at it.
Right.
0 times.
But
so
it does work. Yeah.
So I asked myself, why are we doing this? And the answer was pretty obvious. We're doing this because it's proof of work being done for the seller. It's proof we're in the game. And it is something that is, when you're trying to solicit new clients, they want to see evidence of your position or your placement, right? They want to see that you're reputable, you're in the game, you're doing things. But what they don't know is the things you're putting out there in the world, there's a portion of that is just aimed at marketing to them to choose you, persuade you to choose you as their agent. And today you see a lot of that marketing on social media that is less about competence in the practice of real estate and is much more about positioning them in your head as the luxury agent to go to. And they may be competent at the same time, but you have to ask yourself when you see all this
about. Yeah.
When you see this marketing, does this sell homes or does this sell them to you? Or does this educate, which is our approach? Like, our approach is, does this really help illustrate knowledge and competency and help you, whether you're a client or not, make smarter decisions?
This podcast, right? Even though it's entertainment. Remember that, listener?
It's entertainment. Only entertainment.
I guess up until recently, it's similar with open houses, right? Where agents would be like, yeah, we'll throw an open house. And in the back of that agent's mind, they're like, hell, I hope I get a lot of new leads out of this. When the seller's thinking that the open house is going to sell the home. It's like, for the longest time, open houses were looky-loos, and maybe the agent gets a lead or two out of them.
Yeah. I mean, mostly lead gen. Like 90% lead gen, 10%, 5%. Well, I would say, okay, the agent is doing it for the lead gen. The neighbors are coming to looky-loo. And this is prior to the commission lawsuit changing, and now changing the industry. And now open houses make sense. You just did one this past weekend. It's part of competent practice is that you should do some open houses to try to generate more interest in the listing, even though it's the slowest time of year. But historically, it's mostly been about lead gen for agents.
Yeah. And there was a looky-loo. So what are you going to do? But it's still good to throw them. Yeah.
Well, let me wrap up this topic, Hamish. I mean, I'm glad you had at least one looky-loo. Well, let me wrap up this topic on competency with acknowledging the positive side of competency, because even though there's quite a spectrum, and most new agents are going to fall on the lower end of the spectrum, unless they come with professional skills from outside the industry, but there are agents on the other end of the spectrum with whom we do business with routinely and repeatedly that astound me with their level of complexity and knowledge and skills, and call me to be a better agent because they are so good. Like, they are so professional and skilled and work to solve problems. Creative, but creativity that's grounded in the knowledge that deal structures can be created to solve problems.
Right.
And for example, our reverse 1031 exchange, we don't need to mention the address of this property, but I'll mention the agent because he's so competent. Eric Boy, on the other end of that deal, we told him we cannot do a long close that's dependent on your listing, your buyer's listing selling. We don't want to have that long timeline. Yeah. And he is the one that proposed the reverse 1031. And I had heard of reverse 1031s, but I've never actually executed one. And this was our first reverse 1031, at least that I can remember. I'm getting older, so I don't think I would have forgotten that. But he had enough experience, having been the employing broker of a larger brokerage and having seen this before, to know it was feasible, and then found the information and the intermediaries, communicated that in a way to his client that worked for them. We came up with a deal structure financially to incentivize it. That was my contribution, is like, okay, how about, because originally the answer was, how about we pay we credit your buyer a certain amount of money to make a bridge loan attractive.
Right.
That's what I suggested, is that we will, rather than negotiate on the sale price, let's throw some cash at your buyer's lender so that the cost of the bridge loan is no longer the impediment. And instead, he's like, how about you give us that cash and we do a reverse 1031? I was like, it doesn't matter to us what you do as long as you close. And so that's what we ended up doing. And I want to just, give him a shout out, because I do believe firmly that you name people who you really want to give kudos to, that you want to acknowledge in this industry as being extremely competent. And you don't name the people that have a track record of questionable professionalism and not particularly competent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see some of these, especially, we'll have a listing up and, we solicit actionable showing feedback from our listings. And you see certain agents showing the home and you're like, perfect, thank God they're showing the home, because I know when I reach out, I'm going to get something useful. They're going to respond. They're going to be friendly. And it's, you build your reputation, and their competency is a huge cornerstone of that.
I think that in adding to that, Hamish, I'm going to say that the key factor to building competency is humbleness, is being willing to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And I for sure continue to make mistakes, and that's why we do a postmortem on deals that didn't go right. Like, what did we learn from this, and how do we avoid making those mistakes, or how do we do better for our clients in the future? And that takes taking your ego down a notch or two, and being willing to learn, so that you get out of the incompetent box and move into the mid-range and eventually into the high competency. But I think that you never are so competent that there isn't room for learning. And that learning comes from, this is one of those things that I wish they taught when I was a kid, that success is not paved on success. Success is paved on failure. And the more you fail, the more likely you are to succeed. You just have to keep failing and fail up, right? Not fail and decide that your life is over because you had a failure. It's what did you learn from this failure, and how do you apply that going forward? And real estate is a fantastic area fantastic profession where you continue to gain competency through time, as long as you care and as long as you remain humble enough to learn. I think that there's it's a fantastic profession that way.
Yeah, I think we're starting to beat the horse a bit. Do you want to hit that bullet real quick?
Which bullet are you talking about?
This one right here.
I don't know what you're doing. Just say it, Hamish.
The AI tools one.
I thought we already talked about AI tools with the marketing of. Oh well, we haven't. We talked about AI generated imagery.
Yeah,
but we didn't talk about. Well, why don't you bring? You can bring up the story, Hamish.
Well, it's not to date the podcast, but it's the fourth quarter, and it's a seasonal market slowdown somewhat. So there's time for biz dev is typically what we begin to focus on. Throughout the year, you see all sorts of advertisements for kind of different AI tools that claim to just really change everything about the way you do things. So there's, at this point in time, what I'm focusing on is kind of separating the noise from the reality. And Osmond and I are I think, circling on some fairly useful AI tools, both for kind of our production and also for our systems and client meetings as well. And this is kind of building off the back of, like, we started this closing table on the subject of, like, what is a smartphone? And then you have agents that are, and yeah, we're patting ourselves on the back, but agents that are kind of trying to keep up to date as much as possible, and not blindly go, okay, it says AI in it, let's go for it, but also, like, test and incorporate AI smartly into our systems. And it's just a lot of fun. I kind of want to talk about some of them by name, but I don't want to give away our secret sauce. But I'm also learning that there's some serious caveats when it comes to using AI, and if you use it poorly, you'll brick your computer. And then you'll use AI to fix it.
I mean, we're using AI for simplifying and streamlining processes, and we're using AI for basic research, but not conclusionary research. Like, if it sounds off, we're always looking for citations and evidence that this isn't just an AI hallucination, that this is actually real. And one thing I would be cautious about is using AI too heavily for market analysis or for a specific opinion of value for a property, because it really at this point still takes a human brain to look through that data and make sure that this makes sense. And it takes highly local knowledge, like the knowledge that Pinebrook trades differently than Sunshine, trades differently than 4 Mile, trades differently from Sugarloaf. Those are the four canyons on the west side of Boulder.
$1 Million Drive.
and boy, they trade differently and have very unique and specific factors that are the reason for that, right? Carriage Hills is I think of as, well, anyway, there's a...
Not going too far.
AI is not going to get that. It's not going to get that nuance because that data is not published. It takes, boy, that you see, like, even this thing.
It sounds cozy. I'm hearing it, and it sounds like I want to be there with, like, a hot chocolate and bundled up and reading a book.
Well,
like, yeah, sounds.
That sounds lovely, Hamish. That's a very nice Christmas message. But we're in the middle of a podcast.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so the point
anyway,
I'm trying to make is that one of the questions you might want to ask your agent if you're interviewing agents. Hopefully you're already interviewing people that you trust and that are in the game, have reasonable experience, but you may want to ask them what AI tools specifically they are using and why. And I will mention one of the things we're not doing that we may start to do is employ more AI in our database of clients, because we don't use AI to do some sort of research analysis of the seasonality or seasoning of our past clients' ownership of homes. And for sure, we don't really market to our past clients, and that is a big mistake in our brokerage. We need to do more of that. I just have never figured out how to do it without looking obtrusive.
Feeling good about it.
Yeah, I want to add value and not just send them useless, useless consumer goods, cheap plastic things in the mail. Like, that feels gross. And so I'd rather send them nothing than send them something that they don't value. And at the same time, there has to be time.
It's time for that to change. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so we'll talk about that off pod, perhaps, Hamish. But let's get to Tales from the Trenches. I think we've covered this closing table adequately. So it's time for Tales from the Trenches, and in this particular episode of Tales from the Trenches, is it an episode? This particular segment, we're going to talk about a property we listed and sold, I think this is 2 years ago. I don't know if I want to mention the address, but I will say it's in Fraser Meadows and in a location that is heavily impacted by traffic noise from US 36. And we met with the seller, and this is an example of the seller doing everything right and it being a home run, and a team effort to make it a home run, including all of the work that the seller did in addition to what we did in working together to make this happen. And when we first saw the property, it looked great, but needed things, right? Like, it looked okay. It's probably, I would say, I would give it a B in terms of where it sits in the grading scale of listings. But we really wanted to bring it to an A to overcome the busyness of US 36, because most buyers are not going to jump on something that is that close to the highway. And you have to give them enough benefit over and above that to overcome that objection. So we put together our typical staging consultation. So and at House Einstein, that's a PowerPoint presentation. It's photographs of every single room and the outside, and our recommendations and bullets of what we think you should do. And of course, as a seller, it's up to you what you're going to do, but this is what we really would like you to do before we photograph and video the house and put it on the market. And that after you've done all that, we also want you to professionally stage the property, and we will work with you on the deal structure to allow for that staging, and who pays for it, how it's handled as part of the commissions. All of that is part of the negotiation before we take the listing. But this seller did everything, absolutely everything right.
Like, to the T, basically followed our exact staging consultation.
With quality contractors. And even when we thought, you might be able to cheap out in this particular spot, he didn't cheap out. He went full hog and did it right. And so all of that happened for about 2 months prior to it hitting the market. And then it was time to list. But it looked like a snowstorm was coming in the weekend.
It was a big one, if I remember correctly. Like,
it was a huge
school
one.
Was canceled. Yeah.
School was canceled. It looked bad. And so we recommended, rather than listing it this weekend, let's put it in coming soon status.
That's right.
And we'll just drum up the interest in the property that way, and we'll list it next week. So we put it in coming soon status, and my phone starts ringing off the hook. People really want to see it. And if you let one person see it, you now have to change it and let everyone see it. And that's what happened. One person said, I got to see it. My buyers will be out of town next weekend. If they don't see it this weekend, they won't see it at all. And my seller made the decision to go from coming soon to active. And sure enough, that buyer submitted an offer, which then began a bidding war. I drove my truck with the plow on it down to that listing and plowed.
Oh, you plowed it out, yeah.
I plowed it out because the entire parking lot was impossible to get into. And I was like, you know what? I need people to be able to come in. So I literally came and plowed
that made a huge difference. Dude.
That court.
Yeah.
I mean, it just made sense. And then, so we had an unexpected bidding war, is the short answer, a short version of that story. But so that's the first curveball. Here's the second curveball. Another offer did show up and beat the first offer, but came with, how do I say this?
Something that shouldn't matter, but is certainly a factor or a variable, and didn't matter.
Normally when we have a competitive situation, we will put together a table that compares the offers, and it removes the names of the buyers because we don't want our client to be influenced by their names in such a way that they potentially open themselves up to a fair housing lawsuit. We initialize the names, and we put a table together of the key actual differences between these offers. And one of those key differences actually is who is representing the buyer. Because if the buyer is represented by an agent that we know to be competent,
on the back of that whole discussion,
they are much more likely to get that person to closing, because they don't write offers flippantly. But if it's an agent that got their license yesterday, they don't know what they're doing. Their buyer is likely going to sense that lack of confidence, and they may not have even. It's possible they shouldn't have even written the offer. But in my opinion, they're much more likely to break up. And of course, the seller, our client, will make the decision on which offer to go with. But they typically take our advice on this sort of thing, and they have to weigh the competency of the agent, especially if the offers are close. And in this case, the winning offer was better, but it was represented by someone I know extremely well, and who is actually very competent. And I did tell the seller that. Mm-hmm. But it's somebody that might have some additional items in the liabilities and I'm dancing around this. Okay, I'm
looking for some additional concessions.
There may be additional psychological concessions this person is going to go after because of who it is, right? And so it's my ex, and again, I'm going to say again, she's very competent, but because of the nature of our separation and the recency of it at this point, my feeling was that if you accept this offer, that's fine. But on inspection, there's a very good chance she's going to be extremely aggressive, not because her client wants her to, but because she has a desire for some payback for me
personally. A bit of history, yeah.
Right. Like there's still some animosity there, and I want to warn you that I'm going to do everything possible to not have that flare. And the good news is I know how she negotiates, and it's like I know her extremely well. But the bad news is there's a possibility that this is going to get personal with me if things could go sideways.
And I'll say, as being party to the offer presentation that we held for the sellers, you did present it very neutrally. And it's a while back now, but if I remember right, you even brought up the subject of it very cleanly.
She's good. I know she's good at what she does. But this additional psychological payback factor could not be ignored. Right?
Wild card.
It's a wild card, and I think it'll be fine, but you should make the decision that you feel is best on the knowledge of that. And he decided to go for it. And sure enough, on inspection, she was aggressive. And I had warned my client that this is probably where we're going to end up. But the concession that we negotiated was exactly what we thought we would negotiate. So it wasn't over the top at the end of the day. There's a little bit of bristliness, but that was the end of it. And it worked out fine, and the deal closed smoothly. She represented her client really well. We represented our client really well. And he made the right decision. But the reason I'm bringing up this story is that...
We also had a backup. I'm just looking at the deal folder now. So we were able to gather that second one as a backup and kind of keep
backup
it in
offer.
line. Yeah.
Well, that helped us. And that's good practice, too, is that you put the runner-up in backup position the best you possibly can. And,
Anyhow,
I think, I'm sure that first offer might regret having submitted because they became what's the word? Prancing horse? Stalking horse. They became the stalking horse for the other offer. But the first offer was real, and it's quite possible the second offer wouldn't have shown. I mean, it was literally random chance, right? If the people that bought the house had like a sick kid, right, they may not have done a showing that weekend. So there's quite a bit of randomness that influences real estate. And the first offer was a solid offer, and they did go into backup position, which is the right move. And our move, of course, is to use that backup offer as leverage against the first offer to keep them in line, and they stayed in line. And our client made the right decision, but I think that if you are in a bidding war situation as a seller in Boulder and you're getting multiple offers, your table of comparison should include who are the people that are submitting the offers and what's your knowledge and experience of working with those agents. And then let the seller make the choice, right? Like, I've had some really bad experiences with a few agents in town, but they do a lot of business. And at the end of the day, it may have just been circumstantial that particular deal, they behaved badly. It may have been the client behaving badly. But client management is a component of expertise. And the more you do this, the more likely you are to be good at managing your clients, but not always. And you kind of need to know. Especially if the offers are close.
Yeah, yeah.
If the offers are close, this comes into play.
Mm-hmm. And no, overall, I mean, that was a fantastic deal. And I mean, we've complimented the seller a lot, but I mean, I was still, at least I felt fairly green still to these staging consultations and these recommendations for sellers in prep for listing. And I remember being like, really, redo the whole floors? Doesn't that feel like a bit much? And then seeing them done and being like, man, I'm glad I was wrong. Like, and I've learned something, you know? And so it's, yeah, I mean, I'm still so fresh. I see a lot of contracts and a lot of things, but the intuition from more experienced agents is something innate, and that takes some serious time to learn. So it's cool to see.
Well, we'll just dovetail this into our shameless self-promotion, because we are listing a property likely in the beginning part of January. Nice, and the seller is currently preparing to list it. And one of the most expensive and least desirable things that we've asked them to do is replace the carpet. And the carpet is dirty, it's stained. They've had a family living there for a decade, and because dirty and stained carpet creates a profound negative emotional experience for a buyer, you've got two choices. You can spend the money on the carpet now, or you can have a massive concession to appeal to a different type of buyer in 3 months. And that concession is going to be 3 or 4 times the cost of the carpet replacement. Like, we're going to be dropping the price to make up for the fact that you had something so profoundly negative as an emotional experience waiting for the buyer. And, you know, open the door.
Yeah.
Our photos are not going to highlight the stained carpets. We're also not going to AI the stains out, because if they walk in and see all this dirt and stains, well, I mean, you shouldn't, right? Because it creates such a negative experience for a buyer. Replace the carpet. It sucks. I don't want you to have. And they said, can we just offer a credit for the carpet? And the answer is no.
It won't
credit,
show the same.
A $10,000 credit. In the listing description, seller will credit carpet sets what? Like this expectation the house is gross.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want people thinking when they walk in the door. And it's not what you want them thinking when they open the door is, ooh, that is the last. And so I have never had a buyer go, ooh, this is cheap carpet. So you could go with cheap new carpet.
That's true,
but
too.
But if your carpet is dirty and stained, you have to replace it. It will cost you way more than if you don't.
Yeah. And it's a credit does not have the same emotional appeal as a new carpet, even if the credit is materially more in value.
It doesn't. It doesn't make up for the negative experience of gross carpet, and the positive experience of walking into a home that looks beautiful, turnkey. You could move in tomorrow, brand new carpets. It smells like new carpets. It looks great. Mm-hmm. And we have the company that can do the carpet at a very reasonable price and very quickly. So when you're ready, the week before the showings, that's the time to do the carpet. Like, bam, let's get that done, and let's get the photography and videography to show the brand new carpet.
Yeah, they're great. And good job putting in a shameless.
Yes. So I will mention more about that listing. It's a house in Longmont that will be on the market in early January. I think it has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, great layout. I mean, truly a lovely layout. And you're counting the bedrooms and baths. I think it might have 4 or 5.
Could be 5 if you wall off that loft.
Down in the basement, are there 2
Oh, no,
bedrooms
you're right.
or
5.
1?
Yeah,
I think it's 5. Yeah, sorry, we were not looking at this before we started the pod. But it's a perfect house for a family. It's really in a great spot, and I think it's going to be listed at a relatively affordable price, and it's a newer build, so it doesn't feel like it's not some 70s or 80s relic that is sort of dysfunctional in its design and layout. This is awesome in its layout. Really nice property and a really nice community, a very tightly knit community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay posted. Yeah, keep your eyes out for that one. We're excited to bring it to market. Share it with y'all.
it's time, I think, to talk about market conditions. And in this particular market conditions segment, we're going to talk about news that was just released a couple of days ago, and that the National Association is forecasting a 2026 market rebound. So for those not familiar, the National Association of Realtors is our trade group. And I am currently not a member, actually, because after they bungled that lawsuit and the way they have behaved, it's very hard for me to want to support the National Association. And I've often called them a cartel. So, hopefully they don't come after me for saying that, but that's what my personal opinion has been of the cartel. But it's the cartel that protects our industry and the cartel that encourages people to hold themselves to ethical standards and higher education. Hamish, what are you trying to say?
I was thinking about floating this for our intro. What are opinions and statements shared in this podcast are not reflective of the brokerage. Something like that as a CYA.
They're not. I mean, we have incredible agents in the company. It's not an official position of the company. I have called the chief economist of the association prior to this one. There is a blog
Something
post
nice.
about no, Hamish. If you go look at my blog, you will find me calling the association chief economist a clown because of how bad their forecast was. So you have to take it with a grain of salt when the National Association is forecasting something because of their obvious vested interest in the real estate industry, but they're projecting lower rates, rising inventory, and a 14% sales volume increase next year, although progress will vary by market as affordability and supply differ locally. So 14% sales volume increase across the whole country, and the quote says, if mortgage rates drop to 6%, as the NAR projects, it would mark a full percentage point drop from the roughly 7% average at the start of 2025. And that shift could unlock an estimated 5.5 million additional qualified home buyers nationwide, including 1.6 million renters who could finally make the leap into ownership. And then they've got a whole bunch of things in this article that is aimed at realtors to be ready and track the market and understand market conditions. Of course, all of that is true. The agents should be doing. But I can assure you that the difference between these local markets is profound. And even within local markets, the difference by price range and location is profound. And here in Boulder, the entry level is a little softer than it was 2 years ago, but the high end is totally saturated with inventory. And it's also, what makes me laugh so hard is that it's also, some of the agents are leaning so heavily into marketing at the high end, but they never acknowledge how stagnant the high end is. And so it's if you're not negotiating aggressively on the high end, you're really going in blind to market conditions
and just missing the reality of the situation. If you're not looking at market conditions in the high end, I mean, my Lord, that home you talked about in the newsletter, imagine going in thinking that that's the best price you could get it at.
Yeah, I mean, that's hopefully people are not that ignorant. But I'm often surprised too. So my sister sold a house this summer in Leonia, New Jersey, I was floored that they got a bidding war. She did some prep to get the house sold, but at the price range that house is in, it would not have gotten a bidding war here in Boulder at all. And she got one, and then she was into a bidding war situation on what she was buying too, because the Northeast turns out to be much more active than locally here in Boulder. And I remember when it was completely flipped, right? So and right now AI is driving all sorts of frenzy in the Bay Area real estate market. So you have to trust your local.
In the news later, we're going to talk about Zillow, and I think we're doing that news one. But anyway, you have to trust.
Well, you don't have to. You have to look for locally relevant market information, and preferably information that's specific to your unique real estate situation, your price range, the neighborhoods you're looking in. That's part of the education your realtor should be providing you, your real estate agent, I should say, is providing to you before you write an offer. You need to be looking at homes, but also tracking past sales, looking at, did they sell for more than list or less than list? What was the typical negotiated average from the list price, the discount that was negotiated? Is that for turnkey houses, or was that for what do older homes trade for? All of that is very important to consider when you're trying to develop a strategy that's specific to you. So national predictions are cute, and for some reason, I mean, news agencies pick them up all the time, but they really are completely irrelevant for an individual.
I think you hit the nail on the head too. They've got a vested interest in providing good news, especially when their membership also wants good news. So yeah, national versus local, there's a big distinction. Very important.
There are some very good economists and analysts out there. Calculated Risk is one of my favorites, and I think his name is Mike Simonson. Somebody I know, I've met him at least a couple of times personally, because he's also a burner, but he just got picked up after selling his real estate analytics company, is now the chief economist of Compass. He's also puts together pretty good analysis, but at this point I would be hesitant to believe it entirely, because you have to ask who's paying for this, and what are the other interests that they may have in their predictions for what happens in the future.
I got a topic idea for next podcast, but I think we're good on market conditions.
Okay, let's move on to the news segments. Oh no, we haven't done sales of the week, Hamish. We skipped ahead.
No, we have not.
Okay.
Because we went shameless. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. We need to do sales of the week, and then we'll do in the news. Okay, sales of the week. There's only 5 of them, so we're going to rip through these relatively quickly. The first sale is 721 9th Street, and this is a historic home supposedly built in 1911, and it is right on 9th Street, which, if you're not familiar with Boulder, 9th Street runs basically from the middle of Newlands all the way to Chautauqua. And once upon a time, it actually used to have a streetcar on it. So the street is actually a little bit wider than most of the streets in this part of town that run north-south, with the exception, of course, of Broadway. But it's probably the second widest street in this part of town, and it gets a lot of traffic. So it's a street that I would consider to be compromised by that traffic. And it's also
like the main artery connecting, like, from Chautauqua to, like, Pearl Street to Canyon Road.
If we're lucky, we'll have a gondola that runs right up the middle of it someday. But right now, that gondola dream is a fever dream by a few members of City Council and a few people at CU. But I'd love to see that happen. But 9th Street's busy. That's the bottom line. It's a historic house on a busy street. And it took a long time to sell. It was originally listed in May at $2.85. After about a month, they cut the price by, where'd they go from? 2.85 to 2.79. And then weirdly enough, they thought after that it would be a great idea to raise the price in October. So from June to October, nothing happened. And then they decided, you know what we want to do is we want to increase the price by $9,000. And then about a month after that, a buyer did negotiate on the house and locked it down, and it sold for $2,609,700, a very specific number, which suggests some arm wrestling over something or other. There's no concessions disclosed in the deal. It's arm's length, brokers from 2 different brokerages, one of whom I know, the other one's name's not that familiar. But so what's interesting about this listing is if you look at the photos, you're going to see a really attractive historic house.
Yeah. That
looks like everything has been addressed. It looks completely turnkey. And, I mean, maybe they could have refinished the floors, but even those don't look too bad.
I mean, yeah.
And
cute.
It's hard to sell a house in a busy location. It has to look amazing compared to anything else in that price range, in that particular class of real estate asset. And this does it. And the little carriage house garage was even insulated and electrified, hopefully with a permit. The foundation looks like it's still cobblestone on the outside, so, or at least partially. And that's one of the things with historic homes. You really need to look at the foundation carefully. The right answer, the ultimate answer, is to lift the whole house off of that fieldstone or cobblestone, excavate, and pour a proper basement, hopefully with 10-foot ceilings if you can get away with it, if you can dig that deep. That is the dream, right? Even extend the basement into the backyard if you can, right? Like there's so many different things you can do with.
Shoot. Yeah.
Maybe a walkout's a good idea, but the photos are excellent. The property is excellent. All of these things except for location that you just can't fix. 4 bedrooms, 5 baths, 2,800 square feet. It's just too bad it's on 9th Street. And it did sell for a pretty substantial discount. So let me do the math really quick on what that discount is.
A realtor might give it to me. Or we can benchmark. I've got 8.43.
I have 5% below list. So I'm wondering about the math here, Hamish. So 2609, 700, 2749, and it's 5.1% negotiated discount, which is not a huge negotiated discount for the fourth quarter. And I mean, I think that's actually a pretty good deal for the seller, and the buyer is just, for whatever reason, they're not bothered by the busyness of the road. It's possible the lot is what made up for that too, because it's a big lot, 12,000 square foot lot, and Chautauqua is less than a block away. So there's a lot of nice things about it. The one thing that they will not be able to change is the busyness of that street.
Yeah. Realtors was off of the original list price, which makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. When you say realtors, do you mean realtor.com?
Yeah, that's what I'm using since I'm not on an IRES account.
Right.
Which would be breaking the rules.
Right. When you say realtors, I just didn't know what you were referring
It's not the NAR.
So. Yeah.
No, I'm confused. Maybe it's
it is the NAR. Realtor.com is owned by the NAR. Yeah. I think they have another party operating it, but that's the NAR. Which is fine.
Yeah. It's fine.
Okay, 4748th Street is our next sale of the week. It closed on December 11th, just a few days ago. So this is a resale at Trail Crossing. And Trail Crossing is just southwest of Broadway and Lee Hill Drive. And it's not, one of the things that people are concerned about with this location is the proximity of the homeless shelter. It is close to it, but typically people that are experiencing homelessness are not wandering into the local neighborhoods. They're going up and down Broadway, and they will visit the liquor store. They will hang out underneath the underpass, and they typically go downtown because that's where they can hang out. That's where they can panhandle. That's probably where it's more easy to procure substances. So people have expressed fear of living in these neighborhoods that are just in close proximity to the homeless shelter. Obviously, you have to make your own decisions on these things, but the clients we know that have purchased in these areas have not told us that they have felt particularly unsafe because of the people experiencing homelessness. But it is worth mentioning. That is something your agent should also be mentioning to you if you're looking at homes like this. But Trail Crossing was built in 2015, so 10 years ago. Well, this house was built in 2015. I don't know if they're all 2015, but they're all within probably a year of each other. There's not a lot in Trail Crossing. In terms of number of homes in the subdivision. It's a classic narrow house, right? So it's a small lot and a narrow, tall house. 3 bedrooms on the upper, 1 in the basement, 4 bathrooms total, 1 car garage, 5,200 square foot lot, and 2,500 square foot total square footage in the house. It's funny, it kind of looks like a classic house, like a traditional house, except it's squished and narrow and tall. Like that's how these things kind of come off at me.
They do.
That's my impression.
Yeah. Do you think this is a decent play with like Bamoka and everything coming in?
I think this is a great neighborhood because of its proximity to Wonderland Lake.
The open space. Yeah.
Like you can run from your front door onto the trails in less than 5 minutes and have the incredible views that are in that community park, and run all the way down to 4th Street through Wonderland Hills and through Newlands. Like you can take that bike path all the way downtown and have stunning views. You could also run quite a bit of dirt in Wonderland Lake and Foothills Community Park. And as somebody who runs and would like to get back into running after my ankle injury, I deeply value the open space. And then you've got a whole bunch of restaurants and shops at near our office, as well as in the former, what's it called? My brain is suddenly drawing a blank. The neighborhood that is the former Holiday neighborhood, where the Holiday Drive-In used to be. And it still has some great named streets like Yellow Pine and Easy Rider Lane. But you've got a bunch of restaurants in there too. And when BMocha is finalized, there should be even more decent retail for the neighborhood to enjoy. You don't have to go all the way downtown to get an evening out. So let's talk about the deal itself. It sold for full list price. Originally, it had been listed at 1.5, and that's what it sold for, despite it being a fourth quarter listing. Listed October 7th, went under contract within 10 days, but that buyer broke up with the seller after a long time. Like, it went under contract on the 16th, and it went back to active status on the 6th. So something fishy happened here. That's like 3 weeks under contract, and then breaks up. The listing says that back on market due to no fault of this impeccable home. Doesn't say no fault of the seller, by the way, but says no fault of this impeccable home. Don't blame the house. But it could have been the buyer. We have no idea what happened. Let me be clear about that. I'm just saying this tongue in cheek. But I think it's a great little house for its location, and it sold for full list price. Went back under contract within 6 days of that first deal breaking up, and then sold on December 11th. You were saying, Hamish?
It is a requirement, though. Like, if it does break up over an inspection issue, either that's got to get fixed, or if it's a material effect, the listing agent ought to be disclosing it. So,
I mean,
for
absolutely.
the no fault line,
I mean, listing agents are required to disclose defects. They need to proactively. You don't need to ask. They should be disclosing defects without asking by law.
And operative word should. I mean,
well, and maybe it's not law. It's by our regulator. Let me think about how that. I mean, it's a requirement. And with that said, very few agents will verbally or in writing disclose defects. The seller's property disclosure should be updated if a defect is discovered by the first buyer. And so if you're putting this property under contract as the second buyer, what I would do is ask for a copy of the notice to terminate and see what was disclosed as the notice to terminate. And it should match what they told you. And if it doesn't match, now you have a problem.
A reason not to offer.
Well, but you have already offered. You're under contract.
I see. Never mind.
And the reason I'm telling you to do it that way is that if you do it the other way, particularly if you get the sense you might lose this house, which I bet these people felt because they paid full list, so they must have felt some sense of urgency, and they put it under contract within 6 days of the first deal breaking up. So that suggests they felt a sense of urgency and fear of losing it. Wait until you're under contract and then ask for a copy of the notice to terminate the first deal. That will tell you exactly why they terminated. And if it says inspection, and the listing agent told you it was financing, you got a problem.
Yeah. Anyhow, thank you for answering that. That's a pretty good one. Okay.
So one of the other things I want to mention is that this property, they acquired it for only $797,000, so basically $800,000 10 years ago, and they almost doubled in 10 years. Not too shabby for an investment you're living in, and the HOA is fairly de minimis at $208 a month. I'm not sure what you get for that. Probably not much.
That is pretty good for HOAs, though.
I mean, that's phenomenal for HOAs, but it probably means you get nothing but like park care and shoveling in the winter.
Yeah,
and I don't see in the listing where it's even disclosed what the association includes. But I like how the listing mentions how good Bellota's margaritas are. That's pretty funny.
That's local knowledge. I
mean, it's true. They've got great margs, and they have
the Costas taco.
Oh yeah, those tacos are the best. It's really the only one on the menu that you should order for happy hour. It is just spectacular. Although they changed them recently, Hamish. Now the tortillas are bigger.
Oh no. Perfect. Oh, that's ideal.
Leah mentioned she didn't like them. She liked the old ones better. So you'll have to taste them and then bring it up with her.
Okay, can do. This one you saw, and it had a gutter in the wrong spot.
Okay, so
an interesting spot.
105 West William Street in Superior. So very close proximity to Costco, and very easy to get into Boulder. And you've got great open space just to the north too. So and the Coal Creek Trail is right there as well. Like, there's a lot of reasons to like this location, and the price is usually pretty attractive. And in this case, I think reasonable. This was a new build, 2025, 2,700 square feet, 4-bedroom, 5-bath, all on one level. And that's why we took our client to go see it. They described it as Scandinavian ranch style, but we were really, I mean, there were some design elements that caused our buyer to just lose interest. And it was a maybe until we really saw these design elements in person. And one of them is zero overhang, right? So all you have is that little rain drip edge that's protecting the top of the wall from getting water intrusion. And if the rain's hitting it pretty hard sideways and there's no overhang, you easily could get water damage underneath the drip edge. And then the other thing and you can see this in the first photo, and this is really what gave us pause, is we're looking at this house on the street, we're like, why is there a gutter on the top edge of the house?
That's the overhang.
I said that at the time, like, well, at least that's some overhang, but what is that? Like, you don't put gutters at the top. And so we looked at that for a while, and I did not bring my drone with me, because we could have popped it up there to go look at the roof more closely, because one of the things with this butterfly style roof is you really want to understand how drainage is going to work. And is it going to dump a bunch of water on your driveway every morning, or is it a giant ice flow there? Like, how are you handling drainage? But lots of things about the house were lovely, and they did like the modern design, but the exterior, modern shouldn't come at the price of function. And a gutter at the top edge and zero overhang was enough to say that's not the right house for us. But did love a lot about this property, and we will continue to look at this location closely, but it needs to be ranch style for this buyer. And this particular seller, I think they did okay. So it hit the market. I mean, I'm sure they were disappointed from when they first listed it in September at 1.65. They cut the price about a month later to 1.6, and it sold for 1.52, which is not a huge discount from the last list price of 1.6. So they, $80,000 below list. Hamish, you could do the math on this one for me. But anyway, very attractive home. You're not going to do the math, Hamish? You scared?
From original list, it's down 7.88%.
Okay, but original list is interesting, but negotiated discount is really what I care about. I mean, I used to really negotiated list, especially when it's like more than double digit, is sort of like, okay, you really overpriced it. So 1.52. Where'd my calculator go? 1.52 as under 1.
I have it at 4.9% roughly.
Minus 1. Yeah, 4.94. Yeah. So 4.9% negotiated discount. I would say that's straight up the fairway for fourth quarter negotiated discount.
Super typical.
Typical deal, not an amazing deal, but not a horrible deal. And I think it actually was a cool house, provided that those design elements aren't tragic flaws. And will forever be a problem. Like, I can't get my head around that gutter on the top. And our client, Hamish, is an engineer, right? And so we're just staring at this and can't come up with a good reason why you would put a gutter at the top.
And it's entirely possible we're wrong, but it was enough for our client to say that we're good.
If you know why the gutter is at the top of the roof, please leave a comment and help us understand.
Seriously.
Because I still don't understand why you would ever do this. All right. Our next one is 4251 Peach Way. It's a home built in the 70s and updated, of course, from the 70s in a neighborhood we know and love called Orange Orchard. The reason to love this neighborhood is that it is so easy to get into open space. It has a little hidden access that will take you into absolutely beautiful open space. And you can, if you're a little sneaky, you can even connect to Boulder Valley Ranch. And it's just such a cool spot. provided you don't back to J Road, which is what happened to this house, when they developed it. And even though there's some distance between the house and J Road, I think it's still too close. Like you can measure this literally in seconds, right? It is Google, a distance of about 100 feet. Hang on a sec.
Really? Only
120 feet to J Road. And J Road, in theory, is not a high-speed road, but in reality, there's a lot of traffic that uses J Road. So it's not what I would have recommended a north-facing house. No. With that said, it's a lot of square footage for a very reasonable price, 2-car attached garage, and a large lot. And other than the fact that back to J Road, it's a great location. But you can still see that they listed it in August at 1.3. It did go under contract, but their first buyer broke up with them. And on October 8th, it was back on market for 1.15. So they cut the price $150,000 after that first buyer. You really got to wonder what happened to cause them to say, no, we're no longer confident in our 1.15. I'm just looking at the listing history. Okay, so then something really weird happens. It goes under contract October 27th. It sells on December 10th. And the agent fat fumbles $713,000 into the listing field, and then it's corrected. It's really weird. The listing history for a moment says $713,000, and then it bounces back to 1.15. So I don't know if I believe there's some mess here in how the data was entered by the agent. I don't know this agent, no experience with who they are, but I wonder about how you screw this up, right? It's one of the most important fields is the price. And how you wrote 713, I don't know. But there was an additional $9,300 concession below that 1.15. So in theory, it sold for full list, but I don't really know if that information is accurate based on the fact that there's some data discrepancy here. But the seller acquired the house for $843 back in 2016. And it did look like maybe they did some updating. Let's see what the photos look like again. Probably not. It looks like that's what it looked like. I doubt maybe some fixtures they updated, maybe some new carpet, but really nothing significant in terms of updates from when they bought the house 10 years ago is my guess. And not quite a double like the trail crossing, right? Not even close. So that is, again, pointing to, I think, the weakness of backing to J Road.
I think so, too.
And we'll see what it actually sold for when the tax record updates. So I assume 1.15 is accurate. But whenever I see something like that data discrepancy, right, that momentary
that's so
punching,
strange.
What exactly, it's not even in the same realm of the keyboard.
No, the numbers themselves don't line up to the numbers you would enter for. Okay, it's
not fat thumbed. Go ahead.
You have 2 tabs open, and you're simultaneously editing the price of 2 listings, and one of them is in the 700 range, and the other one's in the $1 million range.
Yeah, I think this might be somebody at Coldwell, which is the listing agent's brokerage, who's entering the data, and the agent doesn't do it themselves, and the assistant, the staffer at Coldwell had 2 properties at the same time, and they screwed up which property it was. Yeah. But it's not a good look. Okay, our last one.
The blood leaves your face when you do that, yeah.
I sort of like screwing up somebody's name. And it is so deeply embarrassing when you screw up somebody's name. Yeah. Particularly if you've been working with them for a while. It's just... I always let it go. I try not to get offended. But in the back of my head, there's definitely this thought, it's my name. Of the things that people might get a little offended by, your mispronunciation or your forgetting is more forgivable than the wrong name. Or them saying whatever your name is.
If I forget a name, I'm I'm so sorry, I know you said it. What's your name again? And I fully apologize in advance.
I always tell Leah that if I'm pausing to introduce you at a social gathering, and please introduce yourself right away, because there's a good chance I'm going through my mental Rolodex of what this person's name is. And as you get older, sometimes it gets harder. So, cut me some slack on that. Please be proactive. Yeah. Okay, our last one. So
this house, a bedroom bath count's different, but between Peach Way and this home, I would 100% lean towards this home.
What is... okay. The one 4251 Peachway, yep. And 3630 Silver Plume. Did I mention the address, 4251 nope. Peachway? Oh, well, I need to mention...
Oh, no, okay. I think you said Peachway. Anyway,
right.
This one
and this last one, 3630 Silver Plume Lane. It just sold for $1.15, 2 days on market. It is a small, detached, single-family house in Shanahan Ridge, which is a neighborhood in South Boulder. It's part of Greater Table Mesa. It's in close proximity to Shanahan Ranch. You can access the open space literally just to the east by crossing the street. And mostly this neighborhood has a lot of townhomes and attached dwellings, so the number of single families are relatively low. And when they go on market, they often sell quickly if they've got a good design and are priced right. And clearly this one attracted a lot of interest because it sold for $50,000 over list. The house itself, it's small is beautiful, 1,460 square feet. But the way the neighborhood was designed is that it has association-owned open space, and you can see that in all the photos. And
it is
how
in
much
such a good location within the association.
I know that this is a luxury that is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
The luxury of space from your neighbors and natural beauty between homes, and it only comes with either a lot of money or an older home that was developed a long time ago when land was more abundantly available. And that's what this neighborhood is. And I think this is such a good buy. So you could fix all of the other stuff in the house, right? Like the interior is a little dated. The choice of tile on the fireplace surround, even the blue carpet and the kind of hokey. Oh, don't take this personally, seller, but the dated furniture, right? That is definitely not staging furniture. That it does tie with some of the tile colors. I sound a little judgy, but the reality
period
is
correct. Yeah.
This is like what you'd expect, not my grandmother, but maybe your grandparents to have in their home, right? They're comfortable family furniture, but it's not designer, it's not high end, and it didn't need to be to get this house sold very quickly. All that really needed to happen was really good photography and making sure it's very obvious what the location benefit is, and then pricing it right. And kudos for the listing agent. I honestly think they may have underpriced it a little bit. But in any event, it's a price the seller agreed to list it at, and maybe that was part of the strategy. And so it attracted a lot of interest and went for $50,000 over list. And had it been sold in March at the same listing, it probably would have been $100 over list. Like this estate sale.
It's pretty out of the park. Yeah.
The name of the seller, by the way, is in the estate sale is somebody named Carol Baskin. Does that ring a bell?
I can't say anything that's appropriate. Do you know Carol Baskin?
I don't know Carol Baskin. The Tiger King. It's the Tiger King name. I doubt it's the same Carol Baskin, but it's pretty funny.
That's good.
That's who look, their name's public record, so I'm not outing them. And it's an estate sale, so this person may no longer even be living, but it's just so funny to see that the seller's estate
Baskins.
Is Carol Baskin's Irrevocable Trust. Yeah, and it also says, please submit offers ASAP. Okay. So I think 1.15 is a screaming deal for this house, right? Table Mesa, to get something this livable under 1.2 is rare. I would have bought and lived in this house all day long. It's such a great buy. And it's evidence that even though the market's slow, it's the fourth quarter, a listing like this might appear that you have to jump on. Like literally, the people had only maybe a day or so to make a decision that this is the house, and they paid cash to beat out other offers, and they went over $50,000 above list to get the deal done. And I hope they're not regretting that decision, because they've got my 2 thumbs up of approval. This is a fantastic home. If they redo the interior with modern materials and paint and then stage it, this is a 1.4. Like it's a great house.
They knew what they wanted, and when it came up, they jumped. This is how this reads. Yeah.
Now there may be a body buried in the backyard, but it's
that expletive Carol Baskin.
that darn Carol Baskin.
Yeah. The Tiger King. Yeah.
Tiger King feels like such ancient history.
I know.
It's such a weird moment. of obsession during COVID was when everyone was watching The Tiger King. What does AI say happened to Carol Baskin when you ask her?
I don't know. Yeah, I'll ask you. Move on the topic, and I'll circle back. I'm gonna News 1A.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to the In the News segment. And the first one is Hanukkah on Pearl. And this is an annual event for our community, and I happened to attend it this year, and I just wanted to mention it because it is something that is really delightful, particularly at a time that a lot of people of Jewish faith feel very scared to be in public. And I think it's important as a community we come together to create safe spaces for people to practice their faith and people that have nothing to do with what's happening in other parts of the world. And I think that a just society protects minority communities, and Boulder did a great job. There's a huge police presence at the event this week, and it's good to see, and it's good to see our city council speaking at the event, and it's good to see people that are not Jewish like me. I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but it's nice to see diversity at these events in support of our community, particularly in moments when they feel not safe. Yeah.
No, seeing your story and shameless plug, Osman's Instagram is Osman Parvez. Can you believe it? It was awesome seeing the turnout and kind of the community come together, especially, I mean, after the recent events in Australia. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah. So. Huge turnout. Fantastic turnout. And that is on my Insta story. I don't think I'll make an Insta post. Maybe I could turn that into a post so it sticks around.
You should cache all those assets if you want. Send them to me and I'll store them. But those are great if we're making content for like next year's event. Then we can use last year's and.
I think the stories are saved somewhere in my account anyway. They're just not publicly
just
visible.
Like the raw files.
You'll have to show me.
I'll show you where to get it.
I mean, I know it's backed up to Google anyway. All the photos are. Yeah. So
off topic slightly, but your story about the Generac and getting that going, I think that could be a reel. That's cool. And Mountain living, being ready for the Excel to turn off our power. All right, the next story is about our beloved Darkhorse, and that's our thumbnail. So we didn't leave you hanging the whole time. Darkhorse is a restaurant that was first opened in March 1975. And the owner of the Darkhorse today actually worked at the Darkhorse in the 1970s and worked his way up and then bought it from the owners and then owned and operated the Darkhorse until today. At least that's what AI says. I did some research while I was driving around yesterday talking to Grok, and that's what Grok told me after I asked a bunch of questions. I assume it's true. If it's not true, feel free to leave a comment. Can't you reach out to? Do you have a direct source you can confirm with?
I do not. At the Darkhorse, I do not. Oh, I have somebody I know that's involved with the transaction and the development in the commercial real estate world, but they may know because they've actually been in real estate that long. They may actually know. So next time I see that person, I'll ask. But in any event, the Darkhorse, it was announced that demolition had to happen by the end of this month, which resulted in a massive influx of community support for the Darkhorse. And I went there last night. It was a zoo. I mean, I would guess it's 10 times their normal business on what was it, Tuesday night? What is today? On a Tuesday night, it was packed. And you had to wait 40 minutes or so to even order a meal. Their prices have not changed, which is really nice. And it was just so interesting to be in. I'm not really into loud, crowded bars, but it was so interesting to see so many people I knew at the Darkhorse.
Oh, really?
To kind of just say goodbye. But the death has been delayed. That's the latest news. We could put a link in this description that it's not set for demolishing. The deadline is moved till March. So my guess is you're going to have at least a couple of weeks in January to enjoy the Darkhorse as well. Demolition is not instantaneous, but it doesn't take a month to tear down
the Millennium
structure.
Gone. Yeah.
Yeah, the Millennium took a long time because it's a concrete building with a lot of steel
and yet it still was quick.
And the Darkhorse, as beloved as it is like a death trap wood frame structure with no windows. Like it's
maybe we do a bonfire. You know? Probably not.
hopefully, and I think it will. We'll see where all that tchotchke and interior decor ends up in Boulder.
Yeah. So good news, and like you said, 10x, and I imagine they're pretty stoked to be seeing that extra patronage for the time being.
If it were me and I owned the Darkhorse and I was in my 70s, I would not move to a new location. I would simply auction off all that stuff. 100%. Make your money on a big auction, and then open a new restaurant with a different theme if you really want to be in the restaurant game. But restaurants are very difficult, very expensive, and typically fail. So if it does move to a new location, which I cannot confirm or deny, then hopefully it'll be successful.
Yeah, the spirit kind of almost lies with the building. Maybe they'll find a new location, and I'm speculating entirely, and then select another employee to take over the company, and they bow out. But the wind is rowling. Shall we move on?
We should move on before the power gets cut. Okay, yeah. Google is testing listings on search results, and it immediately resulted in an 8% decrease in Zillow's stock price. And I think that Zillow and other brokerages face this existential risk that AI and Google will directly choose to compete with them. And it would not surprise me, although I think Google is under so much risk of antitrust already, that if they do it, they probably need an independent partner of Google that they spin out, that is a Google enterprise intended to be a separate company. Yeah, because if they chose to do that, I think that they're going to face even more antitrust scrutiny. But they are testing it in certain markets. I have not seen it locally, but there's a news article about it. It began last Friday, and these are directly inserted into Google search results instead of linking to third-party sites. They're aggregating listing data from multiple sources, displaying it in a standard format similar to how Google handles hotels and flight searches. So watch out, Zillow.
To me, like, it's inherently a sensible decision, but the antitrust side of things is the reality, like the drawback. But I mean, wouldn't it be great to not have to click through and it's all served up right on their search result? Just gotta, there's tons of caveats to that, but like intuitively, that just makes sense.
It makes sense maybe for the consumer.
Right.
Except that if it continues to do what Zillow does, which is direct search traffic to incompetent agents that don't have any experience in the market, I think that's bad for the consumer. And how many stories have we heard from our own clients that the first house they saw was with a Zillow agent who knew nothing about the local market? And that tells you a lot, that experienced agents don't work for Zillow. There are a few, I'm sure, but it by and large, I think that's a good rule of thumb, that if they're working for Zillow, they are probably not that experienced in a local market or that knowledgeable. They are paying for the leads, and you're getting a person that could afford to pay for your lead. And there's enough business that comes from that it's sustainable for Zillow and maybe sustainable for some of these agents, but it's a roadmap to a poor experience with your agent.
Yeah.
And hopefully Google is thinking about that side of it as well while they're experimenting with listing results.
Mm-hmm. And they're teaming up with House Canary, which I just think of canary coal mine. That's whenever I hear that bird canary. But
I haven't really heard of House Canary, so I don't know what that is.
Maybe that is the spinoff, and they've already done that.
I agree with you. What a horrible name, House Canary. This is the bird that dies.
First of all,
in the house
I'm
you're
allergic.
Thinking of.
Yeah.
You're allergic? Well, okay.
No, but
another reason.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about canary in the coal mine. Like, do you really want that name? All right, let's hit the last news article, and then we can wrap up with our Carveout. So Zillow, in the news again, has just released its it's a what do they call this? They called it. It's a press release, and they're recognizing affordability. And basically, they did an analysis of what are the most popular markets. And you have to ask yourself, how do you define popularity before we even go further? Like, what does that even mean? And they define popularity by looking at markets that are drawing shoppers from outside their metros. And these are people that aren't just looking at these houses; they are actually potentially buying homes, and that's driven by that days on market are low. It's measured in days, like how long it takes a home to go under contract is measured in days rather than weeks. So they're looking at hot markets that are attracting a lot of eyeballs from outside the market, and surprise, surprise, these markets also are the most affordable markets, or at least very affordable. And the most popular large city was Toledo, with a typical home value of $126,000, and I think read average sale price rather than typical home value. $126,000. Number one was Toledo for a large city. Most popular overall was Rockford, Illinois. And then there's like Lincoln, Nebraska, and Anchorage are taking the number 2 and 3 spots
Anchorage,
for cities of more than 250,000 people. Okay. Most popular coastal city is Kailua, Hawaii. Most popular small town, Lake Forest, Illinois. But the overall number 1 was Rockford. And the overall number 3 was Albany, a city I know really well because I went to school there, both undergrad at Siena College and grad school at the University at Albany. So I know Albany. I'm really kind of surprised to see Albany suddenly being a hot market. But the reality is that most of the top 10 markets offered prices under $350, jobs and less financial strain for potential buyers. And young people are totally stressed out by high value markets, and they can't afford to buy in Boulder by and large. So even Denver is expensive. So where are they moving? They're sort of giving up on quality of life. And I mean, I hate to say it, Albany is nice, but Albany has a gray cloud that hangs over it for like 3 months a year.
Looking at a picture of one.
I loved living in Albany, but my happiness exploded living in Colorado because of the climate, the sunshine, the outdoor rec. It's such a better place to live. I'm glad I got here when I did.
I'll say I can see the optimism of people moving to these places and kind of wanting to be the change they want to see for quality of life and things. And curious to see how things play out. I mean, you're not fixing the Great Cloud, but maybe it's easier to start a business there, and there's not much recreation, so they'll start a business for that, or see how things take off there, see how it gets shaped.
I mean, Albany is a car-dependent community. Here in Boulder,
they're gonna love that.
Or in Denver, you can get away with not having a car, and it's a lot harder in Albany. I can't honestly imagine trying to live in Albany and commuting on a bicycle every day unless you happen to live or have chosen to live. I mean, there's some cool bike paths for sure, but I don't think it has even close to the connectivity. And then the winter is just so cold and bleak and icy, and people get really depressed in Albany in the winter. I got really depressed in Albany in the winter. I'm so grateful I don't live there anymore. And shout out to my friends that are still there. I mean, there's things I love about Albany, but I guess the takeaway is that affordability matters, but at the same time, if you can afford to live in a place that is as lovely as Boulder, then I think that affordability is no longer your top concern. You really are. I don't know. There's trade-offs, right? Like when I first lived in New York City, I lived with multiple people, tiny places, shared rooms. Like that's how you make it work till you can afford to stay there.
Yeah, I'm personally not looking at leaving Colorado anytime soon. I'm pretty privileged to be here and stoked to be lucky enough to be here. Like you say,
I feel the same. I recognize my sense of entitlement. Well, no, that's not right. I recognize my sense of privilege, like how privileged we are. Yeah, well, check your privilege. Like for sure, it's privilege to live here. 100%. Totally. It's privilege to own here and not rent. All of that is true.
Yeah. Is it Carveout time?
I think it's time to wrap it up, Hamish. Why don't you jump in and tell me about holiday decorations?
And Mr. Balls.
And Mr. Balls.
Precisely what it is. Late to the game, and it's a quick carve out, but late to the game on getting holiday Christmas decorations up. This Friday we'll be putting up lights, and it's the first time we'll be putting up lights with solar on the roof. So I'll be using a ladder a little bit more instead of walking around on the roof. And Osman, I haven't looked at those permanent Christmas lights yet, but I'm gonna do that probably after this and see if I can next day or something order them. And then Mr. Balls, I know listeners, this is the most important part. So you'll be delighted to know that his blood work came back and he is the picture of health. 6'6", 8% body fat. He's the best. So that's about it. I'm stoked. I'm going to have next week we'll have a short holiday pod. So I'm going to save all that for that, but I should have decorations up by then.
So, I mean, I just don't understand why you wouldn't install permanent lights, because yes, you already have the cheap lights, but you have to get up and down every year on a ladder. Why not just buy the permanent ones and leave them up there? And they're not that expensive. They're like $150.
I mean, yeah, I'm gonna look and see, because if they are around that price, I totally will. To be fair, it was really easy to install the first time around, because I can get up on levels
before you had solar, and now you have solar.
Yeah, and now it's the whole deal. So it may very well be that permanent makes sense. I don't know. You think it's gonna like 3x my equity or the home value, or
no? It's 3x your time.
It's not gonna do
your
anything.
time is so valuable.
I'm just
like to
tying
get up
to
and
real
down
estate
on a risky ladder every year, and I don't know. It just who am I to
There's
tell you
something
what
about
to do?
being on a ladder, man. I live for it.
My friend who lives in the Bay Area was walking in his neighborhood and came upon somebody who fell off his ladder. And the guy was in screaming agony and had broken multiple bones. And then he called the ambulance and saw the guy off to the hospital. And the guy died from falling off the ladder. Yeah. So it's not just you might sprain your ankle or break your leg. You could die or suffer permanent bodily injury that injures your brain. Like, it's just ladders are
There's a serious risk.
That's why you are not allowed to be on a ladder for business reasons at our company. For any reason, your personal life is your personal life. I do get on ladders occasionally too, and I do my best to be really careful and not be cocky on a ladder.
I don't go on one unless I can get my roommates to come out and supervise and stand on the ladder. Definitely. And then you and I both over 6 feet. A 6 foot fall is enough to kill you. Just if we trip and fall on our heads, dude, like, I might start wearing a helmet, but I don't think that's a good look at the closing table.
All right, let's talk about my Carveout. If you're feeling complete about ladders and holiday decorations. Did you say much about Mr. Balls? Mr. Balls, your cat?
He's in perfect
he's
health.
Healthy. He's healthy.
Yeah, he's 6 foot.
And you're attributing that to the fact he's intact.
No, I think it's because he's got a fantastic, loving home. And he's got the best owners that he could ever have.
He seems very opinionated, Mr.
Betting
Balls,
myself on the back here
when he interrupts our podcast for sake of communicating. Okay, well, I'm dealing with foot and ankle. What's the word? Healing. It's plantar fasciitis in my left foot, and I let myself start running on shoes that did not have support, and that started the problem in the fall. And it's just so easy to forget when you've gotten used to running and haven't been thinking about the fact that you should have inserts, and that you can't run in. Well, as you get older, it's more common to have these types of issues, particularly if you're a bigger person. And so I just feel so grateful now to be at a place where it's starting to fade, and I've got mobility coming back. And you have to have fear of losing something or having lost something to really value it. And mobility is so important. And so that's my carve out, is take care of your feet and your ankles, stretch, don't ignore pain. If you've decided, or if you need orthotics to run, don't just forget about it. Keep them in there. And it turns out YouTube University is full of all sorts of both useful and quack therapies. So be careful out there. I'm grateful, and this sucks, but I'm mostly grateful that I'm on the healing side of it now, particularly ahead of some of the travel we have coming up in the holidays.
Yeah. No, I'll say, have you seen like ads on YouTube for like Vessi shoes? Vessi. They're, the advertisements hail them as great shoes and all that, but I got a pair, and out of nowhere I started getting knee pain, and didn't link the two together until like one day I think it was showing, so I was wearing, nice looking shoes, and it totally went away, but the nice looking shoes had zero support. And I was like, dude, it's these shoes. So I've got like a barely worn pair of shoes that just ruin my knees if I go and wear them.
Put an insert into them, try them then. See how it changes.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, before you throw them out, try an insert, because I felt the same way about a pair of shoes I recently bought. It turned out that the default insert was just completely flat. And I think there's some exercises I can do to help support my arch, so I'm going to look into that too. I'm also gonna try a mid-level arch support, because I got the low one, and I think a mid-level might suit my foot better. So we're gonna play with that a little bit too. But daily work on it has been helpful, and I'm so grateful. All right, Hamish, let's wrap up this podcast. Do you want to do the infamous roll?
Yeah, I can do it. Let me get over to our notes so I don't miss anything. Dear listener, you've squandered an hour and 55 minutes, give or take, with your favorite podcasters, Osman Parvez and Hamish Crabb at the House Einstein podcast, sponsored by the House Einstein brokerage. We've had a lot of fun recording this podcast, and we are very close to wrapping up the year, and it has been a fantastic journey. If you'd like to see what else we are up to, we have social medias. We're on YouTube, Insta, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, our very own website, houseeinstein.com, where you can see what we're up to and subscribe to our newsletter, get the scoop on active listings, the real thoughts before they're sold. And we love seeing the comments. What was the call to action? It was a Carol Baskin one or something? Where is she now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think that was our call to action. But
no, like halfway through one of the sales of the weeks, I forgot. But it's awesome seeing the comments. It's great seeing the feedback. And we will be back next week for a special episode right before the holidays. And we'll see you then. Stay tuned.
Bye-bye.
Okay, because I'm still recording on my backup. So while you're here, Carol Baskin, she's continuing her advocacy. She spearheaded the Big Cat Public Safety Act, signed into law in 2022, banning cub petting and private ownership of big cats. Sanctuary closure. The Big Cat Rescue in Tampa closed, with all animals moved to Turpentine Creek Wildlife Refuge in Arkansas. And her online presence, she remains active on social media, sharing content and discussing her advocacy work. You might remember she had a second husband, Don Lewis, who disappeared in 1997. The case remains open, and authorities are still seeking leads. Baskin claims to have received documents from Homeland Security stating that Lewis is alive in Costa Rica. However, the sheriff's office disputes this, calling him a missing and endangered person. Thanks again for watching.